Hello there! Day 44 of the Ewan McGregor-a-thon, and today I will be watching Haywire. I have read the synopsis on IMDb and it said something about a Black Ops woman, and that's kind of all I remember. She's also the prominent figure on the poster, but yeah, that's all I can remember. So I think this film will be about a woman who's had Black Ops training, who has to dismantle a bomb, hence the title of the film Haywire. I'm not sure how Ewan McGregor will come into play in this film. I don't think he will play a big role because his name wasn't first on the actors list on IMDb, but yeah, I don't know. So we will find out, and I will let you know what I thought of it after I've seen the film. Remember how I said yesterday that we were on a roll with these really good films? Well, they can't all be winners, am I right? This film was confusing, and I think I know exactly where it went wrong for me. We start off with what I thought was the real film. You have this woman, Mallory Kane, who sits at a Canadian diner. Then an action scene takes place, someone tries to attack her, and then she flees with a random citizen. She steals his car and kidnaps him, and then she explains something. And you think it's just a flashback, but the flashback takes about half of the film. So after about half an hour or something, you start to realize, oh, this isn't actually a flashback scene. The diner scene was actually a framing device, and the real film is the flashback scene. But because it started out as a sort of flashback, I thought that flashback wasn't really important. It's not that I didn't really pay attention, but in a film you kind of have to divide your attention, right? I was focusing on what was really going on and less on the backstory of it all. But then it turned out the backstory was actually the real important part of the story. The problem is not only that I didn't pay my full 100% attention to the backstory, it's just the backstory is told in such a messy and quick way that it's impossible to really grasp it the first time you're watching the film. They're throwing with names, they're just doing something. You get that it's kind of a kidnap situation, but you're not really sure why or who is kidnapping whom, and the rest of the film just felt the same way to me. You always get what's going on, but you don't understand who is doing what and why. And that's a real problem. However, what I did like was the action itself. There wasn't a lot of it, but when there was an action scene, it was executed fairly well. I absolutely hate those action scenes that are just quick cuts and blurry camera movements, and no, these action scenes were just long shots but with a few cuts to still keep it interesting. But you really see the actors or stunt actors, I'm not sure, doing what they're supposed to do. And the choreography itself was also pretty good. So no complaints on that part, it's just mainly the story. At the end I kind of started realizing that this film reminded me of something, and I know what that thing is now. It's John Wick. This is clearly trying to be a female John Wick, but only in a less awesome way. Ewan McGregor was the villain. He had an American accent once again, and you don't see Ewan McGregor as the villain very often, so that was kind of refreshing. If only his role was a little bit more, compelling, interesting. He feels like this M character, like the guy behind the scenes who's kind of pulling the strings, but in the end, spoilers, it turned out he double-crossed everyone and was the main villain. Once again, I didn't really understand what his motivations were, and actually motivation is a big problem in this film because no one seems to have it. And the last scene was, the film ended in a kind of almost cliche way. A guy sees our protagonist, Mallory Kane, he looks at her and he says, "Oh shit." And then the credits roll with like a really funky upbeat tune. And you know that the director and the makers of the film just want you to be like, oh, damn, yeah, that's right. But it really failed for me. I was just sitting there like, what's going on? And yeah. So to conclude, this film was really confusing for me. I didn't get who the characters were, what their motivations were, and there's two possible explanations for this. One, the film was just really clunky, and two, it's my fault, I am just stupid or didn't pay enough attention and I just didn't get it and the film went over my head. That's entirely possible, however, I'm going to blame it on the film. And for that reason, I am giving Haywire a 5 out of 10. A 5 because I didn't exactly hate it, I was still entertained even though I couldn't follow for most of it. Like I said, the action scenes were perfectly fine and they were actually exciting at some points. So I couldn't say I was bored, hence still a positive and passing mark. Tomorrow I will be watching The Impossible, so do join me for that and I will see you tomorrow.